The Heat are in the playoffs following Friday's thrilling overtime win in Atlanta, led by Tyler Herro and Davion Mitchell. Miami moves on to face Cleveland. We'll break down the game and preview the upcoming series on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. For daily content on the Heat, click that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure that you are following us on your podcast app. Lots more of Heat content coming because, baby, we are in the playoffs here. Also, a reminder that your favorite podcast has a free newsletter introducing the Locked On Heat Daily Newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com to start your day with the all-new free Locked On Heat newsletter. Have a great show for you today. We're going to hand out credit cookies. We're going to look ahead to this first-round matchup against the Cavs. But first, David, the Heat are in the playoffs. We are recording this on Saturday morning after the Heat beat the Hawks in the final play-in game to make the playoffs as the 8th seed. They're going to play the Cavs in the first round in a series that I'm really excited for, actually. But, David, let's start. We're going to talk about this game. I'm here in Atlanta. I got to say, there were a bunch of Heat fans at this game in Atlanta, and they are very excited to be in the playoffs. I think this is a huge win and a huge accomplishment regardless of what the Heat do in the next round. In a season where they were dealing with the Jimmy Butler thing really from the beginning of the season when he showed up late to media day, then by January, game 30, he's openly, publicly demanding a trade. To do this and not end up right back where you were 6 years ago before Jimmy got here, for guys like Tyler Herro and Bam Adebayo to step up and say, hey, with or without you, we're still a playoff team, I think that means a lot. There's a ton to get into in terms of this game, the draft picks, everything else, but I think the biggest takeaway is the emotional part of it, and in terms of pride for the Heat.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a huge weight off their shoulders, but also just a sense of encouragement that you can carry this team, to find the strength to be able to be on the road, to achieve history as a 10th seed, to be able to advance to the playoffs, to go into Chicago, a team that seemed like they had your number throughout the regular season, and then beat them soundly, and then to travel to Atlanta, to have a sizable lead, to unfortunately squander that lead because that's the modern NBA, and you have a shooter like Trae Young who can catch fire any second, and then still be able to take that pressure on the road and find a way to score and outscore and defend at such a high level and continue to push in order to achieve this goal of making the playoffs. I think that's huge for this team. And I tell you, it's just the emotional aspect of it is a great point, because to see fans, like we've talked about this before, during the regular season, there didn't seem to be a lot of excitement. Jimmy Butler gets traded. There's the drama before that. And then you kind of lose your identity a little bit. And maybe there's not a lot of excitement or anticipation about what this team can achieve because, well, there's an unknown factor here. It's all of a sudden a big part of your identity and what defined you over the last few seasons is gone. And so what do you do? How do you respond, and how do you kind of view this team? And they go on a 10-game losing streak, and it's very difficult to assess this group and to be enthusiastic about them. And I don't blame any fan that might have wavered in their enthusiasm. But then watching the game last night, seeing it out in public, and then again seeing it in Atlanta with Heat fans there in attendance, they were so excited about the idea. Play-in tournament, it doesn't matter. It felt like the playoffs. It's win or lose, win or go home. And for them, the excitement of seeing this team rally and take this kind of victory in Atlanta was thrilling to see. A great moment, and I think it's fantastic for this team that they were able to achieve that.
I wavered. I was on the tank train. I was there, man. I was there. And now the Heat, they don't have their draft pick this summer. They made the playoffs, so they don't keep their pick. Instead, what they potentially have their pick next year, which is good. But and they'll have the Golden State pick coming over. It'll be 18, 19, or 20. We're gonna have a coin flip or a drawing on Monday to determine whether or not where the Heat are picking between 18 and 20. So the Heat still have a first round pick, but they're not gonna be picking in the lottery anymore. And I'm fine with it. I really am. I'm totally here for it. So I'm in Atlanta for the game, David, and it just so I came up, and I didn't come up as media. I bought a ticket. I came up with my wife. We came up, my brother who lives nearby in Atlanta. He got a ticket, and we were all sitting together. So it was really fun to kind of experience this from that perspective. I was not on Media Row, right? I didn't have my laptop. I wasn't taking notes. I wasn't even really keeping track of the box score. I'm just sitting in the stands as, I don't have to explain what it's like to attend a basketball game for fans. Like maybe as media, but this is how fans actually experience these games. And it was really fun. It was really fun to just sit there with a beer in my hand and watch this game unfold. And the swings of this game, man, you go up by 17 points, and all the Hawks fans around us were just, there was one guy just like screaming just screaming about how the Heat suck and all this stuff before the game started, went quiet by the second quarter when the Heat went up by 17 points. Just couldn't hear from him again. And all the Hawks fans around us were just so dejected. And then the Hawks make that run. They end up taking that 6-point lead, and now all these Hawks fans are going crazy. And they, for an Atlanta team, an Atlanta fan base, that I'm not sure how they feel about Trae Young. Like, even the people around us were just sort of like, I wouldn't say that Trae Young got the loudest ovation when he checked in. You know what I mean? So there's definitely Trae Young fans. I think his jersey outnumbered all of the other jerseys, but I wouldn't say he's not Kobe to the Lakers. Like that's not what's going on here. So, but when he got going, I mean, you really kind of heard from these Hawks fans, and they really wanted to make the playoffs, right? And so I think that you're not going to raise a banner for making out of the play-in tournament, but there is something to be said about being for Miami specifically, being the first 10 seed to ever make it all the way from the bottom of the play-in tournament to the playoffs. That, to me, is for a sicko basketball franchise like the Miami Heat, that is an accomplishment. That they won't hang a banner for it, but they got off on the challenge of being the first ever to do something, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, and I think they're looking forward to the next matchup as well from that same perspective. I know we're going to talk about it a little bit, but you have to find ways to motivate yourself. And you're right in assessing this group as a bunch of sickos, but this is exactly what drives them. It's like, if there's a challenge that you count us out for, that inspires us to rise to that challenge, to be able to find a way to overcome it. And so I think it's really well said, and that this team is just looking for ways to do things differently, and they just don't have the talent. They're not good enough on paper. They're far inferior to the Cleveland Cavaliers, but that's what they're looking forward to, is being able to prove everybody wrong. And so as far as that game is concerned, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's not like a significant moment within the grand scheme of what this season perhaps, but it is a footnote in history that they'll be proud of, that they'll be able to achieve what they did, to go on the road for 2 games. I mean, it's important. It's a challenge. It's difficult for any team to do that. And yeah, you could just say, oh, well, they beat losing teams like Chicago and Atlanta. Yeah, but those are tough teams to beat, Chicago,
they were underdogs. But they were underdogs for both of those games. And it got to the point where Miami ended up being a 1.5-point favorite on FanDuel before tip-off, but it opened Hawks 1.5-point favorites.
I'm surprised at that, because I would have thought that with Atlanta having home court advantage, and I'll tell you, even within the context of the game, I didn't think that Miami was going to pull it out. Like, you've seen this too many times play out the exact same way, where they have a comfortable lead, and then you go, oh, what's going on in that third quarter? And then what happens in the fourth? And we've seen what Miami does in these kind of moments. And especially with a guy like Young, he's such an X factor in that regard, because he could be like 0 for 17 and then somehow catch fire in the next 5 minutes, because all it takes is one of those little head bobs where he draws a foul, gets a call, and then he's shooting from 35 feet out, and he just feels it. And next thing you know, he gets 10 points on his own, and that closes a gap pretty quickly. So watching that game yesterday, my thought process was, this is going to be really difficult for Miami to be able to, if they don't get a 25-point lead. We saw against Atlanta. I mean, I'm kind of wavering here all over the place, but Atlanta against against Orlando in the previous play-in game, they were down 24 points or something like that, and they closed that gap really quickly, and then they wound up blowing it again, because unfortunately that's just the Hawks experience. But I knew that this team could catch fire and be able to overcome any kind of deficit. They wound up taking the lead against Miami, but credit to the Heat. And I know we'll talk about specific players and what they did, but to be able to take that, as they have so often during this regular season, all the double-digit blown leads, the fourth quarter explosions or implosions, and then on the road with a do or die situation. That was pretty exciting. It was pretty exciting, and they did a heck of a job of finding a way to overcome a really tough challenge.
Well, Davion Mitchell was a big part of that. Tyler Herro was a big part of that. We're going to get to credit cookies after this. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The best way to support the show is to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Well, David, it is a Miami Heat play-in victory. It's time to hand out credit cookies.
Listen, it was a heck of a win. You mentioned Tyler Herro and Davion Mitchell, and as much time as I think we should spend talking about them. Yeah, you know what? Let's do it. Let's start off there, because I think Tyler, in particular, really had an impressive game. I thought he was really struggling early on. Maybe it just felt that way because looking at the grand totality of what he was able to achieve, 30 points, 10 of 21 shooting, he was fantastic over the course of the game. But early on, he struggled so much in terms of he wasn't able to hit a three-point shot. His shot looked a little flat. Dyson Daniels did a heck of a job of making things difficult for him.
Yes.
And his floater, and I texted you during the game, his floater just didn't seem like it was the weapon that it had been against Chicago or has been throughout the course of the season. And so I really was wondering, without Tyler Herro being able to step up, he's been the source of Miami's offense for so much of the season. I didn't think it was possible for them to find a way to win this game. But Tyler made a heck of a change in the fourth quarter where he said, you know what? To hell with a three-point shot. If I can't get that to fall, I'm going to attack the paint, or I'm at least going to step in inside the three-point line. And he was able to knock down a couple long mid-range jumpers and just find a way to get that scoring, to get himself going a little bit. And then for him to step up in overtime as well. He was great in those two periods. It was all the difference that Miami needed, and he was just phenomenal. So, again, he gets 3 credit cookies for a heck of a performance. 30 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, too. So, I mean, he was really, really a solid game despite a sluggish start.
Free money, Prize Picks. They always undershoot Tyler Herro on the assists. I think it was 3 assists against Chicago was the over-under on Prize Picks, and then I think it was 5. So I'm making money on Tyler Herro assists. Prize Picks is not caught up on the fact that Tyler Herro is Miami's point guard, and they just run him in that pick and roll over and over again. Also, Davion Mitchell steals, which we'll get to here in a second. But I thought Tyler was great. You mentioned how he was struggling. I looked at the box score at the end of this game. Like I said, I'm there as a fan. I got a beer in my hand, not a box score, not a laptop.
Right.
And I was shocked at the end of the game to see that he had 30 points. It did not feel like Tyler Herro had 30 points in this game. He's, I don't know if you already read the number, but it's 30 points on 10 of 21 shooting, 5 of 10 from three-point range. It's not like, but I was with you. It felt like the threes weren't going in for most of this game. The floater was just off. It just felt like an inch away from where it needed to be, right? And, I was like, oh my God, like they really need Tyler. Like they can't afford not to have a big game from Tyler Herro and win this game, not against this Hawks team. And the fact that he just stepped up in the fourth quarter and in overtime for this team when they really needed him, played 44 minutes in this game. I was surprised by the final box score result, but it goes to show just what this guy is capable of. That he's a true 3-level scorer, and when it's not working for him, he finds ways to make an impact. And maybe in this game it took him a little bit longer than usual, but he'll get there.
He was 4 of 10 through the first 3 quarters, and then 4 of 9 in the fourth. So he even started off the fourth quarter a little bit shaky, but to his credit, kept shooting his way through it. And then, and of course, in overtime, he winds up going exactly. Let me see. I had the number in front of me. He was 2 of 2 in overtime. So he caught fire late and
opened up overtime with that huge 3-pointer, and it just felt like it. That 3-pointer in the beginning of overtime, it felt like a weight had been lifted. It was just, okay, he's gonna be able to shoot in overtime. Like we didn't know what it was gonna look, and it's like, all right, he's here. You got that 3-point lead basically right away. A little bit of a cushion. I know it doesn't really mean anything, but it felt like, again, at least in the arena, it felt like something. Okay.
No, it did. Even watching the game, it's like, okay, you've got the lead. now you kind of have to force Atlanta to try and find a way to overcome that lead. And they kept answering, whether it was Davion Mitchell or Herro in another bucket. They just kept finding ways to just create that little bit of space. And that was all it took. And from then, of course, Mitchell wound up going ballistic in the overtime period.
So we've got 38 points from Tyler Herro in the first play-in game and 30 points in the play-in second game. So that's 2 30-point games in a row to pull Miami into the playoffs and do the thing that no NBA team has ever done, 10th seed out of the play-in tournament to the playoffs. That is very impressive. And it's just something, again, you don't hang banners for making out of the play-in tournament, but that also is very important for those Tyler Herro haters out there. This dude stepped up when the season was literally on the line. You could not afford to lose one of these games on the road. He stepped up.
Yeah, you're not I understand everybody would want you to shoot maybe more efficiently, but 10 of 21 in the final scheme of things, that's a really great shooting night, including 5 of 10 from 3-point range.
Especially when Dyson Daniels is all over you.
Yeah. I mean, that notwithstanding, that
was a huge factor in this game.
Yeah, and 10 of 21, those are really good shooting numbers for a great scorer, and he wound up over the course of that overtime game putting up those big numbers. That says something about where he is as far as a scorer and a star in this league. And we made that point after the Chicago game, but I thought it was a phenomenal performance from him.
How many cookies for Davion Mitchell? I need to talk about him.
He gets 3 credit cookies. 3 credit cookies. You'd like to give more, but some other players I think stepped up as well. And he was phenomenal. 3 of 4 in the overtime period. And not just his offense, but the defense, the just yelling and barking at anybody within a 20-foot range. That guy, you probably could hear him all the way up in the stands, all the jawing he was doing on the floor. Nobody has more enthusiasm, and he just didn't seem like he was even aware of the moment, much less scared of it. That guy, if he doesn't get appreciated by Heat fans, I don't know what you're looking for, because that guy just seemed like he was feeling every moment and just wanting the challenge of it. Comes off the bench and he winds up playing big moments in overtime and saying, yeah, why not? I'll take the 3-point shot. Yeah, give it to me. I'll take that 3-point shot again. 3 of 4 in overtime. That's a game, folks. I mean, for him to be able to put up those numbers in overtime in 5 minutes of play, that's ridiculous. He was so good. And again, just the intensity, the defense, the offense, all of it. I mean, 3 credit cookies feels like it's short, but you have to give some other cookies to other players. But
have you seen that picture that the Heat tweeted out and put on socials and stuff? It's Davion Mitchell just flexing. Andrew Wiggins is behind him, just hyping him up. I think that's my favorite photo of the season. I love that. I love that photo. It really did speak to how it felt in that moment. I love Davion Mitchell's intensity. I love his fearlessness with the 3-point shot. Teams keep leaving him open. And Atlanta wasn't in overtime because it's different in overtime. You just don't want to give up anything. But mostly teams just leave him open. And he's like, I literally don't care. I know that the league wants to label me one of these non-shooters, a Draymond Green, a Josh Giddey, a guy who can make the shot, certainly, but most of the time we're just going to live. If the possession ends in a Davion Mitchell 3-pointer, we're pretty happy with that result as a defense, generally speaking. And he does not care. And I think, look, you can even go back to his last half season in Toronto.
Yeah.
The 3-point percentage is pretty good on a pretty significant sample, and I think the league is going to catch up at some point and be like, I don't know that we can leave this guy. Sort of how Lou Dort has transformed in Oklahoma City. It's maybe in the playoffs, but in the regular season, I don't think we can leave this guy open anymore. But I love the fearlessness of those shots. The 3 straight threes in overtime, it was just a hammer or a nail in the coffin. That doesn't even feel right. It just felt like he took the coffin and threw it off a mountain, and it was just there's nothing here.
Carried it over his head and just threw it. Yeah,
it just threw it into the ocean. Just threw it into the Atlantic Ocean. It was like, hey, all of this overtime, your cute little comeback. I hope you enjoyed that. That was cute. We're done here. I'm shutting the door on this.
Yeah, you could probably speak to it more than I could being in Atlanta, but even just watching it, those felt like so demoralizing. You just, again, you come back from 9 points down in the fourth quarter, and you wind up going into overtime. And
well, let's
you've
back it up.
Pretty good about yourself.
Yeah, you do. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but so they The Hawks make Trae Young hits that runner over Andrew Wiggins right before the end of regulation. Miami doesn't do anything on their final 1.5 seconds. Andrew Wiggins, tough turnaround. They couldn't get anything. So the fans were just going crazy. They're like, we came back, we tied this game, we're gonna win this thing in overtime. And then immediately Tyler Herro hits that three. Immediately Davion Mitchell hits that three. He hits another 2 3-pointers, and it was right back to what it was like in the set. People started leaving in overtime, and it was like, of course he did. So it was crazy. My favorite thing, Dwayne Wade tweeting about Tyler Herro and Davion Mitchell. I don't know what that means, but it means something to me. I
didn't see it. What did he say?
He just said Tyler Herro and Davion Mitchell and a million exclamation points.
Okay. That's pretty much how everybody felt. So
that was the analysis. Yeah, that's the analysis. But to have Dwayne Wade tweeting about it, to be coming off that moment, have that picture with Davion Mitchell. For Davion specifically to have that moment, a guy who was the 9th pick in the draft, had a ton of success at Baylor in college as a big game player. I remember watching him in that tournament, and he just kept showing up in big games, made big shots for Baylor in that tournament, during that tournament run. And goes to Sacramento, who you could see is a mess. Then goes to Toronto, and is a little bit of an afterthought on a team that's very sort of murky and kind of has a lot of things going on. What a stroke of genius by Pat Riley, Andy Ellisberg, and this group to be able to trade PJ Tucker for Davion Mitchell and go grab this guy. This is not even a second draft guy. This is a third draft guy. It's just, hey, it didn't work out there. It didn't work out there. It's going to work out for us. They saw something in him, and they did it. He's got an $8.7 million qualifying offer. You might see it in some people are reporting it in the 7s. He played too many games. It actually got kicked up because of rules. But he's got an $8.7 million qualifying offer. I'm going to go ahead and predict that the Heat are going to extend that offer, and they're going to work out a long-term contract this summer. I know there's a lot of concerns about maintaining cap space in 2026 and not signing Mitchell long-term. This is not even an opinion at this point. I feel pretty good about this prediction. I think the Heat care about 2026. I think they care more about, let's just get Davion Mitchell here long-term. Starter, bench guy, whatever. This guy is a clear closer for us. And that's more important than anything. And we'll figure out 2026 when we get there. If we need to figure out a way to create cap space, we'll do it. But we need this guy because this is a huge, just like going through the bottom of the bin at Walmart and just being like, I can't believe I found this.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly it. I always say I was a comic book collector, and sometimes you find like a rare book that you wonder, like they have these 25-cent bins or these, where these have mostly just toss comic books that like nobody really wants, and all of a sudden you'll find like one really rare one that's like you look around, it's like, are you sure this is supposed to be in here? Like you found something. It was just a great acquisition. You hear about Masai Ujiri all the time, and he's a great front office person, and at the same time you kind of feel like Pat Riley, despite all the criticism, Heat fans, he kind of fleeced Toronto on this one. They really got a heck of a player here. He's shooting 45% from 3 since being acquired from Miami, and hits 3 3-pointers in an overtime must-win game. I know we're going to talk about Cleveland in the next segment, but you know what? Having Mitchell, it's a Mitchell versus Mitchell battle. Obviously Donovan Mitchell is a great player, an all-star player, but you feel a little bit better about that matchup knowing you have Davion on the Miami Heat.
Because they had nobody that could do that before, right? You feel so much better in a season having a guy like, look at Atlanta with Dyson Daniels. They're like, this is our guy. You have a guy that could score. This is our guy that's going to defend him. And Miami did not have that player for a long time. When Jimmy Butler really dialed it in, he could be that, but he didn't. You don't want Jimmy Butler doing that during the season mostly. To have this guy, it's huge. Let's quickly get to the other credit cookies.
Yeah, I've got 2 credit cookies apiece for Andrew Wiggins and Bam Adebayo. I think Wiggins was great. He had some really tough shots early on, but also throughout the course of the game. Finished with 20 points on 8 of 17 shooting. Really solid defense. 8 rebounds, 8 assists. I think it was a very, very good game. Maybe it wasn't a great game. Maybe it didn't pop the same way you'd like it to, and there were some unfortunate shots there that I feel like he could have hit. When it just seemed like there was a lid on the basket. But otherwise, I think he did a really good job of being aggressive, of attacking the basket, of being a presence, something you need. You knew that the offense was going to default to Tyler Herro because that's just who Miami is. But you need somebody to step up and kind of fill in those gaps throughout the course of the game, and especially when Tyler was struggling early on. And I think Wiggs did a really, really good job of that. And so,
well said.
He was sensational in that regard. And then again, I think similarly you could make the same argument about Bam, although I think Bam's defense was a whole other level. Like he finished with 5 blocks for a guy not known as a shot blocker. His size was a huge factor. And obviously Atlanta a little undersized without Capella out there. I get it. But to have 5 blocks, it just felt like the paint was his and nobody could attack it without feeling his presence to some degree. Yeah. And I think he was phenomenal. He also finished with 2 steals, 5 assists, 11 rebounds. Again, the size, he was imposing. He used his physicality, finished with 17 points and 8 of 14 shooting. So a very effective and efficient night, even if it didn't have gaudy stat lines. But his defense and his impact cannot be understated. And I think for a lot of Heat fans, maybe you might say, oh, well, this is the type of guy who needs to have 40-point games or 30-point games. Look, that's challenging, especially when you're doing all the other little things that he does so well. So just appreciate what you do have rather than to look to what you don't. And I think this is a perfect game for Bam because it was really a great complementary scorer, but also just a hell of an impact player in almost every other aspect.
So there's a lot to get to, I think, with Bam, but mostly you look at the matchup between him and Onyeka Aongu, and for the season, they're basically averaging the same stats against each other in the Heat-Hawks series. And Aongu has really come along strong for Atlanta. I wasn't really sure about, this might be a bust, but he's really made a name for himself for the Hawks. He's not the starter because Clint Capella got hurt. He's the starter because he's earned it. He had 28 points in this game on 12 of 19 shooting. Yeah. You could look at that and be like, because going into the year, this game, I was like, Bam can't get outplayed by Aongu. And you might look at the stat line and be like, Aongu outplayed Bam. He did not. Watch this game. Aongu had a nice game. He went 4 of 8 from three-point range. He does not. He's not going to do that. He can hit the three. He's not going 50% on 8 3-point attempts per game. That's not who Aongu is, okay?
Yeah.
So you take that little outlier performance, and that's why the play-in is scary, because you can get those outlier performances and credit where it's due. But you take out that little outlier performance, and you see what Bam did, and it's important also to note that Aongu, despite the three-point shooting, was still a -10 in this game. And a lot of his minutes came when Bam was on the court. Bam was a +9 in this game. So, like, you look at the actual box score, you might be like, but you watch this game, and there was no question who the better player was. It was Bam. His two-way impact in this game was so important. You mentioned the blocks and steals. The possession battle is really important in this matchup because you mentioned Trae Young, his ability to get to the foul line and stuff. That's a really big thing. Miami doesn't really have that guy, even though Tyler Herro would argue that maybe he's that guy lately. Sure. Wiggins on a night-to-night basis is sort of like, are you getting to the foul line or are you not? A little trick or treat there. But the possession battle is really important, and Miami lost the possession battle by 6, which is pretty significant and a little scary. But imagine if Bam doesn't have 5 blocks and 2 steals and how much worse it would be. That might have swung the game. That might have been the Heat probably lose in regulation if Bam isn't being that disruptive defensively. In a way, like your point, that's usually not his game. He's usually just solid defensively. He's not disruptive, not creating turnovers, but he did what he had to do in this one, and I thought it was really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, that'll do it for Credit Cookies. We're going to look ahead. Miami, Cleveland, first round, 8th seed versus the 1 seed. The Heat have been in this position before. We'll see if anything's different this time around coming up next here on Locked On Heat. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The playoff race is heating up. Can the Miami Heat shock the world in the first round? Stay in the know with the Locked On Heat podcast newsletter and get a chance to win one of these amazing prizes by subscribing. You can get a $2,500 Best Buy gift card to upgrade your Sports Cave setup, or a $300 Game Time gift card to go to one of these games, or a $200 Fanatics gift card for some great merchandise. Sign up between April 7th and April 30th, 2025 to be entered. Our Heat newsletter delivers real-time updates, expert analysis, and playoff insights tailored for you. Subscribe now for free to the Locked On Heat podcast newsletter and stay ahead of the season unfolds. Subscribe today. Click the link in the description to enter lockedondaily.com. David, the Heat were in this position last year. Through the play-in tournament, backed into the playoffs as the 8th seed and faced a number 1 seed and without Jimmy Butler. Let me just ask, I'll start with the question. Is this a better or worse situation for Miami to be going into this year, going up against this 1 seed Cavs, a dominant 1 seed, versus, or last year's Boston Celtics, who obviously ended up becoming the champions? No Jimmy Butler again, very different circumstances. Do you think this is a better or worse situation for Miami this time around?
I think it's a better situation, frankly. I really do. I think last year, again, so much of what you expected from Miami was tied to who Jimmy Butler was supposed to be in the playoffs, and everything he'd provided in years past, and feeding off of that energy, even if it's just getting complimentary, games from other players. You needed Jimmy Butler. That was what defined this team for 5.5, 6 seasons. And then you also lose Terry Rozier. Like, you didn't know what you were going to get from him. And I know the version of Terry Rozier that we've seen this season, that wasn't the guy that we saw last year, when you expected him to be, again, a complimentary player, a guy who could attack the paint, create opportunities for others, knock down the occasional three-point. Like, he hit game winners last year. I know he's rightfully being bagged on this year because he's been pretty bad, but last year he was significantly better. And you lose those two players and you go up against a really good Celtics team, and I don't think there was any realistic hope that Miami could challenge them, because Miami had any opportunity they had to beat the Celtics in the past. Most of that had been created by having Jimmy Butler on this roster. You look at this team, and I think even though it's just as daunting a challenge, and I cannot honestly say that I think Miami will upset the Cleveland Cavaliers, but at least you have a new identity and it's intact. You're not waiting for somebody else to come and save you. Superman is still stuck. He's stuck in the phone booth. It's you who has to be able to figure out a way of saving this season, or finding a way to just create a new identity now. And we're seeing it with Tyler. We're seeing it with Bam. We're seeing it with Davion Mitchell, Andrew Wiggins. And you've got those players, like the players that you acquired for Jimmy Butler. Kyle Anderson was big against Chicago. I think he had some solid minutes yesterday against Atlanta as well. We saw what Davion Mitchell provided. We talked about Wiggins' production. Like, you've got good complementary players, and I think you're just in a better place mentally to say, you know what? This is house money. Nobody expected us to be here. Clearly, nobody expected us to be here, because this is achieving history, and this is history in the making as far as being a 10th seed that can advance to the play-in tournament. So here we are against the Cleveland Cavaliers, a really, really good team. Let's just do what we can. Let's just do what we can. And I don't think they're satisfied. I think they really are hungry. I was talking to yesterday while we were watching the game, and they kept saying, "This team is hungry. This team is hungry. Don't count out my Heat. This team is hungry." I don't know what that means against a really good Cleveland Cavaliers team, but you do see it, though. They are eager. They do want this challenge, and that's exciting to see.
So FanDuel has Miami as plus 1,500 underdogs. They're 15-1 underdogs. That sounds about right. This Cavaliers team is awesome, and this Heat team finished the year basically 10 games under 500 and was a 10th seed.
No doubt.
So those odds check out. And the thing I will say about this Cavaliers team, and I've loved them all season long, they are so complete of a team. I don't know that anybody outside of Boston could rival the talent that they have just in their starting five. And then you even look at guys like Ty Jerome, DeAndre Hunter, that they've either coming off the bench or they've added midseason. They are so deep, and no, they don't have a Jokic or a Giannis at the top of their roster. But DaVon Mitchell he's going to come in fifth, I think, in MVP voting. And we've seen his playoff performances in the past. I know he doesn't brand himself as playoff Donovan, but boy, there is a playoff Donovan. Like, look, his playoff stats historically are up there with some of the greats. And that's not hyperbole. Like, 'cause statistically he's there. So this is going to be a tough series. And I think all along, like, if the Cavs were just wearing Lakers jerseys, I think they would be the favorites in the entire league. It's just people have a hard time kind of grappling that garnet and gold without LeBron James in it and being like, that team can win it all. So you even hear from Heat fans be like, Cleveland, it's the Cavs, who cares? It's like, have you watched this team? That said, this Miami Heat, this is a better situation. I'll answer my own question. This is a better situation than it was last year. Number one, you've had since February to figure out how to play without Jimmy Butler. And you went through some growing pains, a 10-game losing streak, but you did it. Last year, Jimmy Butler goes down in the play-in tournament, and you're like, oh, we don't have this guy that we thought we were going to have. So just that in and of itself is a better situation for Miami to be in now than it was last year. So you're prepared. You know how you want to play. You know what you want to start. You know how you're going to close. All these things. Last year, Miami, they played Boston in the first round, obviously. They were 0-3 against the Celtics last regular season. They lost those games by a combined 45 points. They got the snot kicked out of them against the Celtics last year. This year, they'd have actually beaten Cleveland once. They're 1-2 in the regular season, but these games were close. They have lost those 3 games or those 3 games, Cleveland has won by a total of 16 points. That's the margin, a 16-point margin. That's not a lot. That's 5.5 points per game. The Heat have been competitive with Cleveland this year. And I will tell you this, and I don't know that it should be so, but it's true. You talk to players in that locker room, they are not afraid of the Cleveland Cavaliers. They are confident in this matchup. And again, I don't think anybody's talking about this if Cleveland's wearing Lakers jerseys or Celtics jerseys. But that counts for something. We've talked about the emotional factor here and the pride factor. And you talk to people like Bam and Tyler Herro and some of these guys in that locker room, they look at this Cavs team and they do truly believe they can compete with them. I don't know what that means, if it means anything. It probably doesn't, but that confidence walking into that building, not being scared, that at least means something. And I do think it should. And maybe in this first game, Sunday, 7 p.m., Cleveland's coming off of a little bit of a break. Miami's feeling good about themselves. It doesn't even sound like they're going back to Miami. I think they're going straight to Cleveland.
No, they packed accordingly. There was even a tweet from the Miami Heat social media team. They said it during the last broadcast too. They packed to go to Chicago, they packed to go to Atlanta, and they packed to go to the Cleveland for 2 games. So they took everything with them. This is like the inverse of 1 suit, 1 shirt, 1 tie. Like this is like pack 7 suits because we're going to be on the road for a while.
Check those bags. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Make sure you get a dog sitter. Yeah. So I don't know. I would still, I don't think we need to make a prediction. I don't think it's important, but I will. If I was to venture one prediction, I don't know if we have a game 1 line yet. No. I can actually look that up pretty quickly here.
It doesn't even matter.
12.5 point favorites. Cleveland are 12.5 point favorites at home. Yeah. I kind of like Miami in that spot, at least to cover.
It's going to be interesting because I think the factors that you laid out are well stated, because Miami has the advantage of being a little bit more in a rhythm right now, and it's very much our backs against the wall. We're all in this together and feeling pretty good about themselves. And you combine that with some potential rust from the Cleveland Cavaliers, and maybe you can take advantage of the situation. I don't think a win, to say that the Heat could win this game is overstating things. But I do think that they can go in there and challenge this team, and that's all I want. I think that's all I want, for them to have this new identity and to just kind of challenge Cleveland and make things a little bit more difficult for them. I think that would be a win for this team and for the franchise moving forward.
So a couple little storylines here. I know we're going long, but it's a bonus episode, so we can kind of do whatever we want here. Just looking at the matchups really quick, I'm done assuming that Spo will switch his starting lineup. He's got Alec Burks. No matter what we think about Davion Mitchell, Alec Burks tends to be a starter, although he could always pull a Dragic and just be like, nope. And we're going to just change it up going right into the first round. But I'm going to assume for now that we've got Herro, Burks, Wiggins, Bam, Ware as Miami's starting lineup. Cleveland starts Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. Really a lot of interesting stuff here. You've got the 2 big lineup in Miami, whose best case scenario looks a lot like the 2 big lineup in Cleveland with Mobley and Allen, who've really, over a couple of years, kind of hammered out how they want to play together. So I think they'll play that pretty straight up. Bam on Mobley, Ware on Allen. I think that's fair to say. I think you'll have Wiggins guarding Donovan Mitchell at first. You'll hide Herro on Max Strus, which is a lot of fun for a lot of reasons. And then you'll have Alec Burks starting on Darius Garland. And
I think you could have Herro on Garland, right? I think you could have Herro on Garland. I think we've
so
seen
interestingly enough, yeah, maybe we do you do Herro on Garland and Burks on Strus. I think that's definitely possible. Burks is a little foul prone, so maybe that might be the right way. Really interesting in that Atlanta game, Miami towards the end started figuring out ways to kick Herro out of the Trae Young matchup, but early on they were like, "Hey, go to town, man." Yeah, guard him, and they let him guard him on an island. And for the most part, I thought he was pretty good until Trae Young just started catching fire, and then Miami made the right adjustments.
Which he does anyway. Like you can't stop that once he gets into that rhythm.
Right, exactly. But the fact that Herro kept him from getting in that rhythm, for 2 quarters at least, helped win them the game. So. And again, I don't know how much credit Charlie Herro deserves for that, but he held his. I thought, again, watching it, he held his own in that matchup for the most part. So yeah, maybe you just try him out, and then obviously you're going to get to the Donovan Mitchell, Haywood Highsmith bench unit pretty early, and then those are obvious. Okay, Garland, Mitchell, whoever's on the court, we have obvious answers for that. So they're gonna have to put up a lot of threes. No team makes more threes in the league than Cleveland. That is an offensive juggernaut. Bam is going to have his work cut out for him. He's going to have to play 40 minutes a game in this series. I don't think that there's any question about it for Miami to even have a chance to compete in this thing. Evan Mobley might very well end up being the Defensive Player of the Year. And I don't know that he's the best defender in the league, but he's had a really great season front to back, and he is somebody that is going to be able to... I'm a little bit worried about Tyler Herro's float game, because with Mobley and Allen on the court, or even just one of them at a time, these are really big dudes who can kind of eat up a lot of space in a hurry. Yeah. And all that little in-between area that Herro likes to get to with that floater, that can go away pretty quick. So I think the space, getting those guys to space out. Do we see Bam try to establish himself as a three-point shooter early in this series? That could be interesting. Kel'el Ware, ditto. They're gonna need big performances. I think that's how Miami wins this series. It's outlier performances. Not just, you're gonna need Herro, Wiggins, and Bam to be good, but is there an Alec Burks 6 for 9 game from 3-point range? Is there a Duncan Robinson 7 of 10 game somewhere? Is there a Pella Larson game somewhere in here? Is there a Haywood Highsmith 5 for 10 from the field game somewhere in this series? Like, that's going to be the stuff that could possibly swing this thing for Miami.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's Duncan. Honestly, I think he had a lot of looks against Atlanta that he normally would have knocked down, but that was not the case. I don't know that Larson's going to crack the lineup. Highsmith, he was solid. He had some nice production against the Hawks too. There was that baseline drive, I think that really stood out, but he hit some big threes as well. Somebody has to find a way to complement the starters, but it can't just be Davion Mitchell saving you all the time.
No, and Davion Mitchell is another guy who can have one of those outlier performances. The key is, look, how can we get Cleveland to score 15 to 20% less than they usually do? That starts with great defense. Keep the possession battle close. You can't get killed on the offensive boards. Cleveland can get really good on that. Maybe create some offensive possessions for yourself by maybe crashing the glass a little bit. So possession battle. Maybe you can win the foul game a little bit here. Can't turn the ball over. You gotta be on your P's and Q's.
You gotta
play perfect. You can't play worse than Cleveland. Cleveland can still beat you with a bad game. Like with a B- game, Cleveland can still win this series if they just play B- games. Miami has no chance if they're not playing A+ games every single in these games. So it'll be really interesting. I'm really excited to watch this series. Again, the Heat are confident. I think that counts for something. And I'm excited to just watch the Heat in the playoffs. I think this matters. Yep. And getting more of a sample size of this group together going into this postseason, or this offseason rather, is really important. And we'll have plenty of time to talk about this, but if you're a star out there and just saying, wow, I can't believe Miami did that thing nobody else ever did and made the playoffs, and I can't believe they took Cleveland to 6 games or whatever, that's pretty cool. They're a me away from really doing something.
You're making a strong case there already.
I got my eyes on some players, but there's plenty of time to talk about that. This was a bonus weekend episode recapping the play-in tournament. Heat Cavs. Sunday night, 7 p.m. in Cleveland. We'll have our reactions after the game, but for now, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.